Allow me to paint a picture for you of what a universe fine-tuned for life might actually look like. Every star would be surrounded with multiple habitable planets, each in perfect equilibrium, and they wouldn't have shifting tectonic plates causing earthquakes or volcanoes. No dangerously sporadic weather conditions would exist, and we would be impervious to UV radiation if it existed at all. There would be a higher ratio of land to water, and a greater percentage of the water would be drinkable. The requirements for human life wouldn't be so minuscule and tiny. We'd possibly even be able to survive in outer space and explore it with ease. And while this
So what do you think here, Dr. Strauss? I just played this clip because it's interesting because he kind of gives his own expectations of like, well, if their universe is fine-tuned, this is what it would look like. So what are your thoughts on his expectations for a fine-tuned universe?
Yeah, again, that's like, telling the designer of a car that if I was to build a car, it wouldn't look anything like this. It would have nothing but an engine because that's the most important thing, or something. I don't know. But again, I watched this part of the video and I was shocked. He knows nothing about what it takes to create a planet like the Earth by mentioning tectonic activity. So Donald Brownlee and Peter Ward, or Peter Ward and Donald Brownlee, wrote a book called Rare Earth. And in this book, they talk about what's necessary to create a planet that can support life. And they say one of the things that's most necessary to create a planet that can support life is tectonic activity. In fact, they say tectonic activity is the major driving factor as to why we have liquid water on this planet. And so he quotes tectonic activity as something that shows there must not be a designer. Yet he's totally naive, because tectonic activity is actually one of the single most important things if you want to have a planet that can support life and maintain liquid water. And again, you don't have to look very far in the literature to find that. And so as soon as he said that, I go, he has no clue whatsoever as to what is required for a life-giving planet. And in fact, you just said it. His whole thing is his idea of what a universe would look like if it was life permitting. But that's like saying the entire Saturn V should be life permitting. No, because there's a purpose for the rest of it that has to give the infrastructure to support where you want life. And that's exactly what we have here. And even things like these natural disasters like tectonic activity and earthquakes. I'm originally from California. I know what earthquakes are. These are actually required in this universe to create a planet like the Earth. Now he could say, well, he goes on to say, well, God could hold it all together. Well, of course, but now he's again assuming that he understands the purposes of this creator. And that's just crazy, because I can't even tell, the motivations for most people around me, much less what a God would be. And so, it's just, I was flabbergasted that somebody who's trying to debunk the fine tuning would bring up tectonic activity, which is a major requirement for life. And so it's not a disastrous thing. By the way, most of the problems we have with natural disasters are not because of the disasters themselves. They're because of human greed and human decisions. We could certainly build structures that can stand up to any earthquake, but it costs money. We could build structures that would withstand any major flood, like they do in the Netherlands, but they don't do in Houston. It just costs money. And I remember when was it Katrina that went through Houston and flooded it out? And, some scientists from the Netherlands came over and said, look, it's just the way you build. If you build correctly, these natural disasters would not affect your lives. But it's that we are greedy. We build in such a way to try to save money, and it costs money. And beyond that, we actually need these kinds of flooding events, just like we need natural fires in order to have a habitable world. Now, again, you could always argue, well, if I was God and made a life-giving universe, every planet would be, life-supporting and all. But that's saying he understands the purpose of the infrastructure, when that's just impossible to do. He's playing God by saying, this is how I would do it. Again, all you need is one area that's habitable, with the rest of it having a purpose, like a rocket ship. And you've said that there's a designer. That's all you need. You don't need every planet being life-giving to have a designer.
That's super great, and just I'd love to reemphasize the idea that you keep bringing up, where every planet doesn't need to like be having life. Like this cosmos has a purpose in a sense that like we need this giant cosmos to have a planet like ours, and I really want to just like emphasize that because I think it's super important and it's often like left out in this kind of like fine tuning debate. And then he just talks about like in this clip, like you said, he talks about evils, which isn't really related to the fine tuning argument. It's more of like an argument against maybe existence of God, but it's not really related to like the fine tuning argument that people like you or Luke Barnes or all the other really smart people out there are bringing forth.
Yep.
So
In fact, I was going to bring up, well, maybe you're going to play it. I don't know if you're going to play this clip on he claims the parameters aren't as narrow as we think they are. I don't know if you're going to have that clip, but we can comment on that in the future as you go on.